Ridgewood University was a place where dreams were made and broken. Known for its towering libraries, state-of-the-art labs, and professors who had written books thicker than phone directories, it stood as one of the most prestigious schools in the country. Students from all over the world dreamed of walking its hallowed halls, and those who got in carried themselves with pride. But behind the polished marble floors and gleaming trophies lay something darker, something that not everyone talked about openly. Marcus Johnson had always been different. Growing up in a neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, he learned early on that life wasn't fair. His mom worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, and his dad left when he was just a kid. Despite the challenges, Marcus found solace in numbers. They didn't judge him or look down on him, they simply existed, waiting for him to figure them out. By the time he was 10, he could solve equations that stumped adults twice his age. By 15, he was tutoring college students online. And now, at 21, he had earned a spot at Ridgewood University's advanced mathematics program. It wasn't easy getting there. Marcus knew he didn't fit the mold of what people expected from a student at Ridgewood. Most of his classmates came from wealthy families, wore designer clothes, and drove expensive cars. He, on the other hand, wore jeans with holes patched up by his mom and carried a backpack that had seen better days. Still, none of that mattered to him. What mattered was proving to himself, and maybe to the world, that he belonged here. On his first day, Marcus walked into the grand lecture hall feeling both excited and nervous. The room buzzed with chatter as students compared summer internships and shared stories about traveling abroad. Marcus took a seat near the back, preferring to observe rather than join in. As he flipped through the syllabus handed out by the professor, he noticed a few heads turning his way. Some students whispered to each other, their eyes darting toward him before quickly looking away. It wasn't hard to guess why. In a sea of faces that looked alike, Marcus stood out, not because of anything he did, but because of how he looked. Dr. Evelyn Harper stood at the front of the room, her sharp gaze scanning the rows of students. She was tall, with perfectly styled blonde hair and an air of authority that commanded respect. Her reputation preceded her. She was known as one of the toughest professors at Ridgewood, someone who pushed her students to their limits. Today, however, her focus wasn't on the eager young minds ready to soak up knowledge. Instead, her eyes landed on Marcus. Evelyn leaned over to Dr. Richard Hayes, who sat beside her grading papers. "Do you see that new student?" she asked quietly, nodding toward Marcus. Hayes glanced up briefly, then shrugged. "What about him?" "He's interesting," Evelyn said, choosing her words carefully. "I checked his file earlier. Transferred from a public school in Chicago. No connections, no family legacy. Just showed up out of nowhere." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "You think he bought his way in?" Evelyn sighed. "Maybe. Or maybe it's affirmative action again. Either way, I doubt he'll last long in my class." Sitting on the other side of Evelyn was Dr. Laura Bennett, a younger professor with curly brown hair and a warm smile. Unlike Evelyn, Laura preferred to give people the benefit of the doubt. "Let's not jump to conclusions," she said gently. "He might surprise us." Evelyn gave her a skeptical look. "Laura, be realistic. Look around this room. These kids have been groomed for success since birth. Do you really think someone from a public school can compete with them?" Before Laura could respond, the bell rang, signaling the start of class. Evelyn straightened up and addressed the students. "Welcome to Advanced Calculus 3, she began, her voice crisp and clear. "This course is designed to push you beyond your comfort zones. If you're here because you think it'll look good on your resume, I suggest you drop out now. Only the best will survive." Her words hung heavy in the air, and Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew professors like Evelyn, people who thrived on intimidation, but he refused to let her shake his confidence. After all, he hadn't come this far to back down. As the weeks went by, Marcus proved to be a quiet but steady presence in class. While others struggled to grasp complex concepts, he absorbed everything like a sponge. His assignments were turned in early, and his answers were always correct. Rachel Kim, a Korean-American student sitting next to him, couldn't help but notice One day, after class, she approached him. "You're really good at this stuff," she said, holding up her notebook filled with scribbles and crossed-out attempts at solving a problem. "Mind if I ask how you do it?" Marcus smiled shyly. "It's just practice, I guess. Numbers make sense to me." Rachel laughed. "Well, they definitely don't make sense to me. Maybe you can tutor me sometime?" "I'd be happy to," Marcus replied, surprising even himself with how easily the words came out. For once, he felt like he was making a connection. Word of Marcus's abilities eventually reached Alex Carter, another student in the class. Alex was the opposite of Marcus, loud, carefree, and prone to cracking jokes during lectures. But beneath his easygoing exterior was a sharp mind, and he admired Marcus's quiet determination. During a group project, Alex paired up with him and was blown away by how quickly Marcus solved problems that had stumped everyone else. "Man, you're like a superhero or something," Alex joked one afternoon as they worked together in the library. "Should we call you Math Man?" Marcus chuckled. "I'm just doing what I love." But not everyone was impressed. Evelyn, Hayes, and Bennett continued to watch Marcus closely, their opinions divided. Evelyn remained convinced that he must have cheated somehow, while Hayes grew increasingly annoyed by his consistent performance. Even Laura, who initially defended him, started to feel uneasy. Something about Marcus's brilliance unsettled her. It challenged everything she thought she knew about privilege and opportunity. One Friday afternoon, Evelyn called a meeting with Hayes and Bennett in her office. "We need to address this," she said firmly, pacing back and forth. "Marcus is disrupting the balance of the class. Other students are starting to question why they're struggling when he seems to breeze through everything." "What do you propose we do?" Laura asked, cautiously. Evelyn stopped pacing and turned to face them. "We test him. Push him harder than anyone else. If he cracks, we'll know he doesn't belong here, and if he doesn't—" She trailed off, unwilling to finish the sentence. Hayes nodded eagerly. "I like that idea. Let's see if he's as smart as he looks." Laura hesitated, but ultimately agreed. Deep down, she hoped Marcus would rise to the challenge. Yet part of her feared what might happen if he did. Unaware of the storm brewing behind closed doors, Marcus continued to excel. He spent hours in the library, poring over textbooks and working on extra problems for fun. To him, math wasn't just a subject. It was a language, a puzzle, a way to make sense of the chaos around him. Little did he know, his journey was about to take a dramatic turn. The stage was set. The players were in position. And soon Marcus would find himself facing a challenge unlike any he had encountered before. The seminar room was packed, the air buzzing with anticipation. Students shuffled into their seats, notebooks in hand, whispering excitedly about what Dr. Evelyn Harper had planned for today's session. Rumors had spread like wildfire earlier, that week. Something big was going to happen. No one knew exactly what it was, but everyone agreed it was unusual for a professor to call an impromptu seminar outside of regular class hours. Marcus Johnson sat quietly near the back of the room, his usual spot. He didn't pay much attention to the chatter around him. Instead, he flipped through his notebook, reviewing some equations he'd been working on the night before. Math was his escape, his safe space. It didn't matter if people doubted him or whispered behind his back. As long as he had numbers, he felt grounded. Rachel Kim slid into the seat next to him, her bag thudding softly against the floor. "Hey," she said, glancing around the crowded room. "Any idea why we're here?" Marcus shook his head. "No clue. Maybe another pop quiz?" Rachel groaned. "Ugh, I hope not. I'm still trying to recover from last week's." Alex Carter plopped down on Marcus's other side, chewing gum loudly. "Relax, Rach. If it's anything important, Math Man over here will save the day." He grinned at Marcus, who rolled his eyes but couldn't help smiling back. At the front of the room, Dr. Harper stood beside a whiteboard, her arms crossed. She waited patiently as the last few stragglers filed in and took their seats. When the room finally fell silent, she stepped forward, her heels clicking sharply against the tiled floor. "Good afternoon, everyone," she began, her voice cool and commanding. Today's session is designed to push you beyond your current capabilities. We'll be conducting a live problem-solving exercise. Each of you will be given a complex equation to solve under time pressure. This isn't just about getting the right answer, it's about demonstrating how well you can think critically under stress. A murmur rippled through the room. Some students looked nervous while others exchanged confident smirks. Marcus remained calm, though his fingers tightened slightly around his pen. He wasn't worried about solving problems, he lived for challenges like this. But something about the way Dr. Harper spoke made him uneasy. Her gaze seemed to linger on him longer than anyone else, her expression unreadable. Dr. Richard Hayes, seated off to the side, leaned forward with a smirk. To make things interesting, Harper continued, I've selected problems that even graduate-level mathematicians might find difficult. Consider this a true test of your abilities. The tension in the room spiked. Rachel shot Marcus a worried glance. This feels personal, she muttered under her breath. He shrugged. We'll see. One by one, students were called up to the board to tackle their assigned problems. Some stumbled immediately, their faces flushing red as they erased mistakes and started over. Others managed halfway decent attempts but ultimately failed to reach the correct solution. The professors watched silently, jotting notes on their clipboards. Finally, it was Marcus's turn. Dr. Harper gestured for him to come forward, her lips curling into the faintest hint of a smile. Marcus, let's see what you're made of, she said, her tone dripping with challenge. As Marcus walked to the front of the room, he could feel every eye on him. Whispers filled the air, some supportive, others skeptical. He ignored them, all focusing instead on the equation scrawled across the board. It was indeed complicated, involving multiple variables and layers of abstraction. But to Marcus, it wasn't intimidating. It was beautiful. He picked up the marker and began writing, his movements steady and deliberate. Step by step, he broke down the problem, simplifying its components until the solution became clear. The room grew quieter as he worked, the only sound the soft squeak of the marker against the board. Within minutes, he turned to face the audience, the final answer neatly written in bold letters. There was a beat of silence before the room erupted into murmurs of disbelief. Even Dr. Bennett, who had tried to stay neutral throughout the session, looked stunned. Dr. Hayes frowned deeply, flipping through his notes as if searching for a flaw in Marcus's logic. Dr. Harper, however, simply stared, her mask of composure slipping ever so slightly. Well done, she said finally, her voice clipped. But let's not stop there. She quickly wrote 2 more problems on the board, each more intricate than the last. If you're as talented as you seem, these should pose no issue. Marcus didn't hesitate. One after the other, he solved the equations with ease, leaving the professors and the entire class speechless. When he finished, he returned to his seat without fanfare, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Rachel leaned over, her eyes wide. That was insane. How do you even do that? It's just practice, Marcus replied modestly, though he couldn't hide the small spark of pride in his chest. The rest of the seminar passed in a blur. Other students tried their best, but none came close to matching Marcus's performance. By the time Dr. Harper dismissed the class, the mood was electric. As students filed out, many stopped to congratulate Marcus, their earlier doubts replaced with admiration. Outside the seminar room, Alex clapped Marcus on the back. Dude, you're officially a legend. Did you see Hayes' face? Priceless. Marcus chuckled. I just did what I always do. Rachel nodded emphatically. What you did was incredible. You proved them wrong. All of them. But not everyone was pleased. Back in her office, Dr. Harper paced furiously, her frustration evident. This changes nothing, she snapped at Hayes and Bennett, who had joined her for a debrief. He must have prepared for this somehow. There's no way he could solve those problems without prior knowledge. Hayes leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. Are you sure? Because it looked pretty legitimate to me. Bennett hesitated, then spoke up. Maybe we underestimated him. Maybe he really is that good. Harper shot her a sharp look. Don't be naive, Laura. People don't just walk into Ridgewood and outperform everyone else without help. Something's off. Hayes rubbed his temples, clearly uncomfortable. So what now? Do we dig deeper into his background? Yes, Harper said firmly. Find out everything you can about him. His high school records, any competitions he entered, anything that might explain this anomaly. Bennett opened her mouth to protest, but thought better of it. Instead, she nodded reluctantly. Fine. But if he turns out to be genuine, we need to rethink our approach. Harper ignored her, already scrolling through files on her computer. Let's see what secrets Marcus Johnson is hiding. Unaware of the scrutiny he was under, Marcus spent the rest of the day basking in the aftermath of his triumph. For the first time since arriving at Ridgewood, he felt a sense of belonging. People actually looked at him differently now, not as the outsider, but as someone to be respected. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to him. That evening, as he sat in his dorm room poring over a new textbook, Marcus allowed himself a moment of reflection. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would still be doubters, still be challenges to overcome. But for now, he chose to savor the win. After all, he reminded himself, every great journey begins with a single step. Little did Marcus know his journey was about to take a dramatic turn. The professor's investigation would uncover truths that none of them expected, and set the stage for a confrontation that would change everything. The next few days at Ridgewood University were unlike anything Marcus Johnson had experienced before. Word of his performance during the seminar spread like wildfire, and suddenly, he was the center of attention. Some students approached him with genuine admiration, asking for advice or tips on how to improve their own skills. Others, however, weren't so kind. Whispers followed him wherever he went, some accusing him of cheating, others speculating that he must have memorized solutions ahead of time. Marcus tried to ignore it all. He knew jealousy and skepticism came with the territory when you stood out in a place like Ridgewood. But even though he kept his head down and focused on his work, he couldn't help feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on him. It was exhausting, but he refused to let it show. Instead, he channeled his energy into studying, finding comfort in the predictability of numbers. Meanwhile, Dr. Evelyn Harper, Dr. Richard Hayes, and Dr. Laura Bennett were busy digging into Marcus's past. They scoured his high school records, contacted teachers who had taught him, and reviewed every paper he'd ever submitted to academic journals. What they found shocked them, and not just because of its depth, but because of what it revealed about their own biases. Dr. Bennett was the first to uncover something significant. While reviewing Marcus's old transcripts, she noticed a pattern. Every teacher who had worked with him described him as exceptional and ahead of his peers. One math teacher even wrote, "Marcus has an innate ability to see connections that others miss. He is destined for greatness if given the opportunity." Curious, Bennett decided to dig deeper. She discovered that Marcus had participated in national math competitions throughout high school, often placing in the top tier despite coming from an underfunded public school. More impressively, he had already published 3 research papers on advanced mathematical theories, papers that most graduate students would struggle to understand, let alone write. When Bennett shared her findings with Harper and Hayes, the room fell silent. For once, Harper didn't have a cutting remark ready. Hayes leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples as if trying to process what he'd just heard. "So," Hayes said finally, breaking the silence, "he wasn't lying. The kid actually is a genius." Harper crossed her arms tightly, her jaw clenched. "That doesn't explain how he ended up here. A student like him should have been recruited by MIT or Stanford, not Ridgewood," Bennett sighed. "Maybe he chose us. Or maybe no one else saw his potential until now. Either way, we can't deny the facts. Marcus earned his place here fair and square." Hayes muttered something under his breath, clearly unhappy with the turn of events. Harper, however, remained quiet, her mind racing. She had spent weeks doubting Marcus, questioning his abilities, and even plotting ways to expose him. Now, faced with undeniable proof of his brilliance, she felt a pang of guilt. But also fear. Fear that she had underestimated someone so profoundly. Fear that her own prejudices had clouded her judgment. Determined to confront Marcus directly, Hayes invited him to his office later that week. When Marcus arrived, Hayes greeted him with a forced smile and gestured for him to sit. The office was cluttered with stacks of books and papers, giving it an almost chaotic feel. Marcus sat stiffly, unsure why he'd been called in. "Marcus," Hayes began, leaning forward slightly, "I wanted to talk to you about your recent performance in class. Impressive stuff." Marcus nodded cautiously. "Thank you, Dr. Hayes." Hayes hesitated, then continued. "But I have to admit I'm curious. Where did you learn to solve problems like that? Not many undergraduates, heck, not many professors, can handle equations at that level." Marcus shrugged modestly. "I've always loved math. It's something I've practiced a lot over the years." "That much is obvious," Hayes said, his tone shifting slightly. "Still, I find it hard to believe you picked all this up on your own. Did someone mentor you? A family member, perhaps?" Marcus shook his head. "No, sir. Just me and my books." Hayes frowned, clearly unsatisfied with the answer. He pressed on, asking increasingly technical questions about advanced calculus, number theory, and quantum mechanics. To his astonishment, Marcus answered each one with clarity and precision, leaving Hayes visibly shaken. By the end of the meeting, Hayes was sweating profusely, his earlier confidence replaced with unease. As Marcus stood to leave, Hayes managed a weak smile. "Well, Marcus, you certainly live up to the hype. Keep up the good work." Once Marcus was gone, Hayes slumped back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He had expected to intimidate the young man, to catch him off guard or trip him up somehow. Instead, he had walked away feeling like the student. Back in her office, Dr. Harper wrestled with her emotions. She couldn't shake the image of Marcus standing confidently at the whiteboard, solving problems that stumped seasoned mathematicians. Part of her still wanted to dismiss him as a fluke, but another part, a quieter, more honest part, knew better. Reluctantly, she decided to reach out to him. The next day after class, Harper pulled Marcus aside. "Can I speak with you for a moment?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. Marcus nodded, surprised by the request. They stepped into a nearby classroom where Harper closed the door behind them. For a long moment, she simply stood there gathering her thoughts. "Marcus," she began, her tone hesitant, "I owe you an apology. I underestimated you. I allowed preconceived notions to cloud my judgment, and for that, I am truly sorry." Marcus blinked, caught off guard. He hadn't expected an apology, especially not from someone like Dr. Harper. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I appreciate that." Harper nodded, her expression earnest. "Your talent is undeniable, and I want to make sure you're given every opportunity to succeed here. If there's anything you need, resources, guidance, anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask." Marcus hesitated, then spoke. "I just want to be treated like everyone else. No special treatment, no assumptions. I'm here to learn and grow, same as anyone." Harper smiled faintly. "Fair enough, you've earned that respect." As word of Harper's apology spread among the faculty, opinions began to shift. Some professors admitted they had misjudged Marcus, while others remained skeptical. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, particularly between Harper and Hayes, whose jealousy grew with each passing day. Despite the growing recognition from some corners of the university, Marcus still faced challenges. Certain classmates continued to doubt his abilities, spreading rumors that he must have cheated or relied on outside help. Even Rachel and Alex noticed the subtle digs directed at him during group projects and discussions. One afternoon, after a particularly frustrating exchange with a fellow student, Marcus confided in Rachel. "Sometimes it feels like no matter what I do, people will always question me," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder. "They're just jealous, Marcus. Don't let them get to you. You've proven yourself over and over again. That's all that matters," Alex chimed in, tossing an apple in the air. "Yeah, man, half these people wouldn't last 5 minutes in your shoes. Keep doing what you're doing, they'll come around eventually." Their words helped, but Marcus knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. He couldn't change how others thought or acted, but he could control how he responded. And so, he resolved to keep pushing forward, no matter what obstacles lay in his path. In the weeks that followed, Marcus threw himself into his studies with renewed determination. He collaborated with Rachel on a project involving differential equations, impressing her with his creative problem-solving approach. He also teamed up with Alex to develop a new algorithm for data analysis, which earned praise from several professors. Dr. Bennett, inspired by Marcus's resilience, decided to take action. She approached Harper with an idea: a mentorship program aimed at supporting underrepresented students in STEM fields. Harper agreed, recognizing it as an opportunity to address the systemic issues within the department. Together, they launched the initiative, inviting Marcus to serve as a key figure in its development. Though hesitant at first, Marcus agreed, seeing it as a chance to give back to others who might face similar struggles. As the semester progressed, Marcus found himself at the heart of a growing movement. Students began rallying around him, inspired by his courage and determination. Slowly, but surely, the culture at Ridgewood started to shift, not completely, but enough to make a difference. Yet, even as Marcus gained allies, he knew the fight wasn't over. There would always be those who doubted him, who questioned whether he truly belonged. But Marcus also knew something else. He wasn't alone anymore. With friends like Rachel and Alex by his side, and mentors like Dr. Bennett believing in him, he felt stronger than ever. Little did Marcus know his journey was far from finished. Challenges still loomed on the horizon, bigger and more complex than anything he'd faced before. But armed with his intellect, his resilience, and the support of those who believed in him, Marcus was ready to take them on, one equation at a time. The mentorship program Dr. Laura Bennett and Marcus Johnson helped create quickly gained traction at Ridgewood University. Students from underrepresented backgrounds flocked to the initiative, eager to find support and guidance in a place where they often felt overlooked. For Marcus, it was both fulfilling and exhausting. On one hand, he loved helping others navigate the challenges he had faced. On the other, the constant spotlight left him drained. Despite the growing respect he earned from some professors and students, tensions within the faculty continued to simmer. Dr. Evelyn Harper struggled with guilt over her initial treatment of Marcus, but found it hard to shake off years of ingrained biases. Dr. Richard Hayes, meanwhile, grew increasingly resentful. He couldn't stand the idea that a young student could outshine him, a seasoned professor in his own field. His jealousy festered, manifesting in passive-aggressive comments during department meetings and thinly veiled attempts to undermine Marcus's achievements. One afternoon, after a particularly heated discussion about the mentorship program, Hayes confronted Harper in the hallway outside her office. "You're letting this get out of hand," he snapped, his voice low but sharp. "Marcus is everywhere now, mentoring students, presenting research, stealing the spotlight. It's ridiculous." Harper crossed her arms, her expression firm. "He's not stealing anything, Richard. He's earning it. Maybe if you spent less time criticizing him and more time improving your own work, you wouldn't feel so threatened." Hayes bristled. "Threatened? That's absurd. I'm just pointing out that we're giving him too much attention. What about the rest of the students? Are we supposed to ignore them because Marcus is suddenly the golden boy?" "It's not about ignoring anyone," Harper shot back. "It's about leveling the playing field, something you might understand if you weren't so busy sulking." Their argument drew stares from passing students and faculty members, but neither seemed to care. Hayes glared at Harper for a moment longer before storming off, leaving her standing, alone in the corridor. She sighed heavily, rubbing her temples. This wasn't what she had signed up for when she became head of the mathematics department. The weight of leadership, and the responsibility to right past wrongs, was heavier than she'd imagined. While the professors argued behind closed doors, Marcus focused on the mentorship program. Alongside Rachel Kim and Alex Carter, he organized workshops and study sessions for students who felt isolated or overwhelmed. They transformed an unused classroom into a cozy meeting space, filling it with beanbags, whiteboards, and snacks donated by supportive staff members. The room became a haven for students who needed encouragement or simply a place to belong. Rachel took charge of outreach efforts, spreading the word through social media and flyers around campus. "We need to let people know this is a safe space," she told Marcus one evening as they worked on posters together. "A lot of students won't come unless they feel welcome," Alex chimed in, sketching a cartoon math wizard on one of the flyers. "Yeah, and they'll definitely come if Mathman is involved." Marcus rolled his eyes but smiled. "Just finish the poster, Alex." Despite their lighthearted banter, the trio knew the importance of what they were building. Every student who walked through the door reminded Marcus of himself, not just his struggles but also his strengths. Watching others gain confidence filled him with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt before. However, not everyone supported the program. Some professors accused Dr. Bennett of favoritism, claiming she was using Marcus to push a personal agenda. Others dismissed the initiative altogether, arguing that it detracted from the university's rigorous standards. Even among students, there were whispers of resentment. A few complained that Marcus was receiving special treatment, while others refused to participate, believing the program was unnecessary. One day, as Marcus walked across campus, he overheard two classmates talking near the library. "I heard he only got into Ridgewood because of affirmative action," one said, lowering his voice but not enough to avoid being heard. "No way, he's actually smarter than us," his friend nodded. "Yeah, now he's getting all this attention. It's unfair." Marcus clenched his fists but kept walking. He'd dealt with comments like these his entire life. Still, hearing them at Ridgewood stung more than he expected. This was supposed to be a place where talent mattered most. Yet, old prejudices persisted. When he arrived at the mentorship room, Rachel noticed his tense expression immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting down her notebook. "Nothing," Marcus muttered, dropping his bag onto a chair. "Just tired of people doubting me." Rachel frowned. "Did someone say something?" He hesitated, then recounted what he'd overheard. To his surprise, Rachel didn't try to comfort him with empty platitudes. Instead, she stood up, determination flashing in her eyes. "We need to do something about this," she said firmly. "Something big." "Like what?" Marcus asked, raising an eyebrow. "I don't know yet," Rachel admitted. "But we can't let them keep tearing you down. You've earned everything you've achieved, and it's time they saw that." Alex, who had been doodling on a scrap of paper, looked up. "She's right, man. Let's show them who you really are." Inspired by their enthusiasm, Marcus agreed to take action, but not in the way Hayes or Harper might have predicted. Instead of confronting his critics directly, he decided to focus on his work. He teamed up with Dr. Bennett to tackle a groundbreaking project involving quantum algorithms, a field that combined advanced mathematics with cutting-edge technology. Together, they developed a prototype capable of revolutionizing data encryption, AI, feat that caught the attention of major organizations including NASA and the National Science Foundation. News of their success spread rapidly, drawing praise from both inside and outside the university. Articles about Marcus appeared in academic journals and local newspapers, highlighting his contributions to the field. For the first time, even his harshest critics couldn't deny his brilliance. But success came at a cost. As Marcus gained recognition, he became increasingly isolated. Some classmates distanced themselves, unable to reconcile their jealousy with their admiration. Others avoided him altogether, afraid of being overshadowed. Even within the mentorship program, attendance began to dwindle as participants grew intimidated by his growing fame. One evening, after a long day of meetings and presentations, Marcus sat alone in the mentorship room. The once bustling space now felt eerily quiet. He stared at the whiteboard covered in equations, wondering if he'd made a mistake by pushing so hard. Had he sacrificed connection for achievement? Rachel found him there, slumped in a chair with his head in his hands. "Hey," she said softly, sitting beside him. "You okay?" Marcus shook his head. "Not really." I thought things would get better, but I don't know. Sometimes it feels like nothing changes. Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder. Things are changing, Marcus. You're changing them. But change takes time, and it's not easy. I just wish people would see me for who I am, he admitted. Not as some kind of symbol or exception. They will, Rachel assured him. But until then, you've got us. Me, Alex, Dr. Bennett, we're not going anywhere. Her words brought a small measure of comfort, but Marcus knew the road ahead wouldn't be smooth. Still, he reminded himself why he was doing this, not for recognition, but to pave the way for others like him. If his journey inspired even one person to believe in themselves, it would be worth it. As the semester drew to a close, tensions within the faculty reached a boiling point. Hayes's resentment toward Marcus spilled over during a department meeting, where he openly criticized the mentorship program and questioned its effectiveness. This isn't about supporting students, he argued. It's about making ourselves look good. We're sacrificing quality for diversity. Dr. Bennett slammed her fist on the table, startling everyone. That's enough, Richard. Diversity is quality. If you can't see that, then maybe you're the problem. The room fell silent as Hayes glared at her, his face red with anger. Harper stepped in, her voice calm but firm. Let's focus on facts, not opinions. The data shows that the mentorship program is helping students succeed. That's all that matters. Hayes stormed out of the meeting, slamming the door behind him. Though the confrontation left everyone shaken, it marked a turning point for the department. Harper and Bennett doubled down on their efforts to promote inclusivity, while Hayes retreated further into bitterness. For Marcus, the incident served as a reminder of how far Ridgewood still had to go. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but every step forward counted. With his friends and mentors by his side, he vowed to keep pushing, for himself, for the students he mentored, and for future generations who deserved a fair chance to shine. Little did he know his greatest challenge and his greatest triumph was yet to come. The annual symposium at Ridgewood University was the highlight of the academic year. It brought together students, professors, and industry leaders to showcase groundbreaking research and innovations. For most attendees, it was a chance to network and gain recognition. For Marcus Johnson, it was an opportunity to prove once and for all that he belonged. Dr. Laura Bennett had encouraged Marcus to present his quantum algorithm project during the symposium. This is your moment, she told him one afternoon as they reviewed the final details of their presentation. Show them what you're capable of. Marcus nodded, though he couldn't shake the nervous energy building inside him. He'd faced skepticism before, but this was different. The symposium would be attended by some of the brightest minds in mathematics and technology, people who could either validate his work or dismiss it outright. Either way, there was no turning back now. Rachel Kim and Alex Carter were equally excited, though for slightly different reasons. Rachel saw the symposium as a chance for Marcus to cement his legacy at Ridgewood. Alex, on the other hand, viewed it as an opportunity to watch his friend shine. You're going to crush it, man, he said confidently as they walked to the auditorium together. Just don't let the pressure get to you. I'll try, Marcus replied with a small smile. But deep down he knew the stakes were high, not just for himself but for everyone who believed in him. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation as attendees filed in, taking their seats. Professors mingled with corporate sponsors, exchanging business cards and discussing potential collaborations. Students sat nervously near the front, clutching folders filled with notes and slides. Among them was Marcus, dressed in a neatly pressed shirt and tie, a rare departure from his usual casual attire. When it was finally time for presentations to begin, Dr. Evelyn Harper took the stage to introduce the event. Her voice carried authority as she welcomed everyone and outlined the day's agenda. As she spoke, her eyes briefly met Marcus's, and she gave him a subtle nod of encouragement. It was a small gesture, but it meant more to Marcus than he cared to admit. One by one, students and faculty members presented their projects. Some were impressive, earning applause and questions from the audience. Others fell flat, met with polite smiles and awkward silence. Through it all, Marcus sat quietly, rehearsing his lines in his head and reminding himself to breathe. Finally, it was his turn. Dr. Bennett joined him on stage, her presence calming yet energizing. Together they stepped up to the podium, the spotlight shining brightly on them. Marcus adjusted the microphone and cleared his throat, his heart pounding in his chest. "Good afternoon," he began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "My name is Marcus Johnson, and I'm here today to present a project I've been working on with Dr. Laura Bennett. Our goal was to develop a quantum algorithm capable of revolutionizing data encryption, a solution that addresses the growing need for secure communication in an increasingly digital world." As Marcus explained the technical aspects of the algorithm, the room grew quieter. Even those unfamiliar with advanced mathematics found themselves captivated by his passion and clarity. He used simple analogies to break down complex concepts, making the material accessible to everyone. Dr. Bennett chimed in occasionally, adding context and reinforcing key points, but the focus remained firmly on Marcus. When he reached the conclusion of his presentation, Marcus paused and looked out at the audience. "This project isn't just about numbers or equations," he said, his tone softening. "It's about creating opportunities for people who might not otherwise have a voice. Too often, talent goes unrecognized because of biases we refuse to acknowledge. I hope this work inspires others to push boundaries and challenge the status quo." The room erupted into applause, the sound echoing off the walls. People stood, clapping enthusiastically as Marcus and Dr. Bennett exchanged a proud glance. For a moment, Marcus felt like he was floating, weightless and free. All the doubts, all the whispers, it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the standing ovation he received, not just from his peers, but from professors, researchers, and industry leaders alike. Among the crowd, Rachel wiped away tears of pride while Alex whistled loudly, grinning from ear to ear. Even Dr. Harper, seated in the front row, allowed herself a genuine smile. For the first time, she truly understood the impact Marcus had made, not just on Ridgewood but on the future of mathematics itself. Backstage after the presentation, Marcus was swarmed by well-wishers. Students congratulated him, asking how he managed to pull off such a feat. Professors praised his ingenuity, some even offering invitations to collaborate on future projects. Industry representatives handed him business cards, eager to discuss potential applications of his algorithm. Through it all, Marcus remained humble, thanking everyone graciously. Yet beneath the surface, he felt a mix of emotions: relief, joy, and a lingering sense of unease. While the symposium marked a turning point, he knew the fight for equality and recognition was far from over. Later that evening, as the excitement began to wind down, Marcus returned to the mentorship room. Rachel and Alex were waiting for him, along with several students who had participated in the program. They had decorated the space with balloons and streamers, transforming it into a makeshift celebration area. "You did it!" Rachel exclaimed, pulling him into a tight hug. "I knew you would." Alex held up a bottle of sparkling cider. "Time to toast the man of the hour. Who wants a cup?" Everyone cheered as Alex poured drinks and passed them around. For a while, the stress and tension of the past months melted away, replaced by laughter and camaraderie. Marcus felt a warmth spread through him, knowing he had built something meaningful, not just for himself but for others. As the night wore on, conversation turned serious. One student, a shy freshman named Jamal, spoke up hesitantly. "Marcus, I just want to say, seeing you up there today made me believe I can do big things too. Like maybe I'm not alone in feeling like I don't belong here." Marcus nodded, understanding exactly how Jamal felt. "You're not alone," he said firmly. "None of us are. That's why we're here, to lift each other up and remind ourselves that we deserve to be here as much as anyone else." The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. For many of the students, this was more than just a celebration. It was a reminder of why they fought so hard to overcome obstacles and defy expectations. Meanwhile, tensions within the faculty continued to simmer. Dr. Richard Hayes had skipped the symposium altogether, unable to stomach the idea of watching Marcus succeed. When he returned to campus the next day, he found Dr. Harper waiting for him in the department lounge. "We need to talk," she said bluntly, her arms crossed. Hayes groaned. "Not this again." "Yes, this again," Harper snapped. "Your behavior is unacceptable, Richard. You're alienating colleagues, undermining students, and damaging the reputation of this department. If you can't support our mission, then maybe you don't belong here." Hayes stared at her, his face reddening with anger. "You think I'm the problem? Look around you, Evelyn. This place has changed. It's not about excellence anymore, it's about optics. And Marcus is leading the charge." "That's where you're wrong," Harper shot back. "Marcus is excellence. He represents everything we should strive to be as educators: innovative, inclusive, and unafraid to challenge the norm. If you can't see that, then yes, maybe you're right, you don't belong here." Hayes stormed out of the lounge, slamming the door behind him. Harper sighed heavily, leaning against the counter. She knew confronting Hayes wouldn't solve everything, but it was a start. Change required difficult conversations, and sometimes difficult decisions. In the weeks that followed, Marcus's success inspired widespread changes at Ridgewood University. Dr. Harper implemented mandatory diversity training for faculty, emphasizing the importance of inclusion and equity. She also partnered with Rachel and Alex to expand the mentorship program across campus, ensuring that every student had access to resources and support. Even Dr. Bennett, who had always championed underrepresented students, found renewed purpose in her role. She worked closely with Marcus to refine the quantum algorithm, securing funding for further research. Together, they envisioned a future where innovation wasn't limited by prejudice or privilege. For Marcus, life at Ridgewood became less about proving himself and more about paving the way for others. He continued mentoring students, sharing his story, and advocating for systemic change. Though challenges remained, he faced them with resilience, knowing he wasn't alone. As graduation approached, Marcus reflected on how far he'd come. From the quiet boy sketching equations in a Chicago apartment to the celebrated mathematician standing on stage at Ridgewood Symposium, his journey had been anything but easy. But every struggle, every doubt, every triumph had shaped him into the person he was today. Little did Marcus know his story was only beginning. The world beyond Ridgewood awaited, ready to embrace or challenge his brilliance. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: Marcus Johnson was unstoppable. Graduation day arrived at Ridgewood University, bringing with it a mix of excitement and nostalgia. The campus was alive with energy as students in caps and gowns gathered on the sprawling green lawn, surrounded by proud families, friends, and faculty members. For Marcus Johnson, it was a moment he had dreamed of for years, but one that felt surreal now that it was finally here. As he stood among his classmates, waiting for his name to be called, Marcus thought back to everything that had brought him to this point. He remembered the long nights spent studying in dimly lit rooms, the whispered doubts from those who didn't believe in him, and the unwavering support of people like Rachel Kim, Alex Carter, and Dr. Laura Bennett. Each memory was a thread, woven into the fabric of his journey, shaping him into the person standing on stage today. When the announcer finally called his name, Marcus stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. As he walked across the stage, the crowd erupted into applause, not just polite clapping but genuine cheers. Students rose to their feet, some whistling and others shouting his name. Even professors who had once doubted him joined in, their faces filled with respect and admiration. Dr. Evelyn Harper handed Marcus his diploma, her expression softening as she shook his hand. "Congratulations," she said quietly, her words carrying more weight than either of them could have imagined months earlier. Marcus smiled, nodding in gratitude before moving on to pose for photos with the university president. Back in his seat, Marcus allowed himself a moment to soak it all in. He glanced over at Rachel and Alex, both grinning ear to ear, holding up signs they'd made that read, "Math Man Forever," and "We Knew It." Their antics made him laugh, easing the lump in his throat. For the first time in a long while, he felt truly at peace. After the ceremony, the celebration spilled onto the quad, where tables laden with food and drinks awaited guests. Marcus's mom, dressed in her Sunday best, pulled him into a tight hug, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so proud of you, baby," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You did it." "Thanks, Mom," Marcus replied, hugging her back just as tightly. "I couldn't have done it without you." Nearby, Rachel and Alex were busy recounting stories from their time at Ridgewood to anyone who would listen. "Remember when Marcus solved that insane equation during Harper's seminar?" Alex asked, laughing. "Everyone looked like they'd seen a ghost?" Rachel nodded enthusiastically. "And then there was the symposium. I swear half the audience wanted to give him a standing ovation right then and there." Marcus rolled his eyes good-naturedly, though he couldn't help smiling. These moments, simple, joyful, and full of laughter, were what he cherished most. They reminded him of why he had worked so hard to get here. As the afternoon wore on, Marcus found himself in deep conversation with Dr. Bennett. She had been instrumental in helping him navigate the challenges of Ridgewood, and now she offered advice for the road ahead. "You've accomplished incredible things already," she told him, her tone warm but serious. "But don't stop dreaming, Marcus. There's still so much you can achieve, and so many people you can inspire along the way." "I'll try," Marcus said, his voice steady. "But it's scary, leaving this place behind and stepping into the unknown." "That's part of the adventure," Bennett replied with a smile. "And remember, you're not alone. We'll always be here if you need us." Her words reassured him, grounding him, in the knowledge that he carried a community with him wherever he went. Later that evening, Marcus returned to the mentorship room one last time. The space that had once been a refuge for struggling students had transformed into something greater, a symbol of hope and resilience. As he looked around at the whiteboards covered in equations, the posters tacked to the walls, and the beanbags worn from hours of use, he felt a pang of sadness knowing he wouldn't see it again. But as he sat down in the middle of the room, memories flooded back. The late-night study sessions, the brainstorming sessions with Rachel and Alex, the quiet moments when he simply let math take him away from the world. This room wasn't just a place. It was a testament to what could happen when people came together to support each other. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Rachel and Alex poked their heads in, holding a cake decorated with numbers and symbols. "Surprise!" they exclaimed, stepping inside. "What's this?" Marcus asked, laughing despite himself. "It's your farewell party," Rachel explained, setting the cake on the table. "We figured you deserved one last hurrah before you head off to change the world." Alex grinned. "Yeah, and we couldn't resist adding a little math flair to the cake, see? Pi and infinity symbols, classic math man style." The three of them laughed, cutting slices of cake and sharing stories about their favorite moments at Ridgewood. For a while, the room was filled with warmth and camaraderie, a perfect ending to an imperfect chapter. In the weeks following graduation, life moved quickly for Marcus. He accepted a research position at a prestigious institute, where he continued working on quantum algorithms alongside leading scientists. His work gained international attention, earning him invitations to speak at conferences and collaborate with experts from around the globe. At the same time, news of his success inspired changes within Ridgewood University. Dr. Harper implemented sweeping reforms aimed at creating a more inclusive environment, including initiatives to recruit underrepresented students and provide resources for their success. Dr. Hayes eventually left the university, unable to adapt to the shifting culture. In his absence, younger professors stepped up, eager to build on the progress that had been made. The mentorship program Marcus helped create flourished, expanding beyond mathematics to include students from all disciplines. Rachel and Alex took on leadership roles, ensuring its legacy endured long after Marcus had moved on. Together, they turned the program into a cornerstone of student life at Ridgewood, proving that even small actions could spark meaningful change. Years later, Marcus returned to Ridgewood as a guest speaker during the university's annual Diversity Week. Walking through the familiar halls, he marveled at how much had changed since his time as a student. The campus felt vibrant and welcoming, a stark contrast to the tension-filled atmosphere he had once navigated. During his speech, Marcus reflected on his journey, sharing lessons he had learned along the way. Success isn't about proving yourself to others, he told the audience. It's about staying true to who you are, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. And it's about lifting others up, because none of us gets anywhere alone. His words resonated deeply with the students and faculty in attendance, many of whom approached him afterward to express their gratitude. Among them was a young woman named Jamal, who had once confessed feeling out of place at Ridgewood, now thriving as a junior researcher in physics. Seeing her confidence and determination brought tears to Marcus's eyes. As he left the auditorium that evening, Marcus paused to look back at the building glowing softly under the night sky. Ridgewood had tested him, challenged him, and ultimately shaped him into the person he was today. But more importantly, it had given him a platform to make a difference he hoped would ripple outward, touching lives far beyond its walls. With a final glance, Marcus turned and walked away, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. His story wasn't just about overcoming obstacles or achieving greatness. It was about creating opportunities for others to do the same. And as he disappeared into the night, one thing was clear. Marcus Johnson's legacy would endure, inspiring generations to come.